Hello and welcome back to NoBS. Today we return to talking about one of the biggest and most popular streamers and video makers on the internet. I'm of course talking about Ninja. Now, Ninja isn't his real name, obviously. He's not a ninja at all. In fact, he's just this bright hair-colored video game player who got famous for playing Fortnite a couple years ago. Fortnite, for those who don't know, is a battle royale type game where you pick up weapons and fire them at your friends and people you don't know, and you run around this map and try to kill each other. And that's what Ninja does for a living. He plays video games. He talks about them. He does a lot of screams and yells. He's like one of those real excited guys who's like, oh my God, just really kind of infantile humor, very, very immature kind of style of video and of content, but it works. Obviously, he's doing well. He's got himself millions of dollars. He's streamed on multiple websites. He's had his following follow him around all over the place, and that's cool. Good for him. And actually, today, instead of talking about him in a negative way, which is what we've done before, we're actually going to kind of support something he recently said that's getting him some backlash, as you might know. So here it says, Ninja says parents should parent their kids, citing it's not his job to teach kids about racism and white privilege. Now, this makes me think of two things, actually. First of all, we would probably mostly agree with him. It's not his job. Actually, I would say it's not really anyone's job to teach their kids about this racism and so-called white privilege that's mostly overhyped and basically not existent, especially the latter part. I mean, white P is just like a made up boogeyman that people talk about and pretend it's like this big deal when it's really, really not. Like, it's really a minor thing from hundreds of years ago that might have been true like before we were all born. But to pretend nowadays that white people have all these privileges over others, I mean, you'd have to prove it. You'd have to try and actually show some privileges instead of just kind of making up this whole ambiguous thing. But that's really besides the point. Today, it's about Ninja kind of getting it right. But at the same time, like, the second thing I think about this quote is just how, he believes in all this racism and WP, like he's a big, big leftist. He's one who's like come out about Trump and like done stuff, other political things, talked about banning the Second Amendment, changing our rights, doing other very left-wing stuff. So he's not really changing there. I think he's just kind of downplaying the politics side. I think he might even regret getting involved in that stuff. Like I mentioned, like this is the stuff we talked about him before over the last couple years. He comes out political, looks really bad. I mean, he's already a pretty ridiculous looking guy. Like, look at this picture. It is not like an attractive person. I'm not trying to mock that though. I think he just accents himself like in the worst ways. Like this hair thing is totally ridiculous, but also a common like beta soy boy left wing move. He also dresses like a child, but he isn't that old, but he still is an adult. He's still married and running this big business, but he dresses like a little teenager. And he's kind of like, I don't know, almost like hello fellow kids, like Steve Buscemi style, like wishing he was still young or something. And he just looks silly. But the point is, this guy tries to talk about politics and now he's backpedaling. And I think the other thing that's really funny is there are people giving him backlash for this, saying, hey, if you have the opportunity to speak to these people, you should be using it for good. You got to use it to teach them the right ways. But really, that's just liberals hoping that he'll teach them liberal stuff. And they know, that they wouldn't be agreeing with it if, say, Ninja happened to be a Trump supporter. If he was a Trump supporter and had that view and said, hey, I have this big platform now, I got to teach people stuff about conservative politics. And they would then say, oh no, that's a bad idea. Like, just do your video games. But I would say this either way. Like, sometimes I'll support people that come out with a little bit of this or that. Trump supporter randomly here or there is kind of fun. But yeah, I think Ninja is on the right path here, actually. So it's going to be different trying to defend him. Ninja thinks parents should parent their kids. The popular streamer said it's not his job to teach kids about racism and white privilege. This boogeyman white privilege everyone talks about. Popular Twitch streamer Tyler Ninja Blevins, great name by the way, has some choice words for parents in an interview with the New York Times. Listen to, and more importantly, teach your kids. Ninja was asked several questions by the publication about a number of things in his life, from his plans to transition to voice acting to his comments a few years ago about not playing games with women. One question in particular was centered around the behavior of the kids who frequent his live streams. When asked what could be done to mitigate the oftentimes infantile and inflammatory comments made in the chat, which inevitably tend to devolve into some form of derogatory or racial slurs, Ninja said it all comes down to parenting. So that's partially true. New York Times is being a little ridiculous, like expecting him to manage these chats. This guy has thousands of people watching him him at a given moment, like 10,000s, I don't even know, like a lot of people watching. I'm sure that chat is just rolling so quick. Even if he had moderators, they couldn't handle it all. And what's the point? I mean, there's a few naughty words on a chat on the internet, and New York Times acts like, oh my God, you're spreading white supremacy. Like, oh my God, what are you going to do to stop this racism? It's like, no, this is not racism, okay? Just because someone says a few slurs on Twitter or whatever, on a chat, live streaming Twitter, YouTube, whichever it is, like that's nothing. That's barely racism. Like I wouldn't even, I mean, obviously some of these slurs are offensive, and especially if you're saying it to someone's face or you're saying it in a video or some kind of like very significant way. But this chat thing, like that's nothing. That's like barely a blip on anyone's radar. Like no one's going to see that. No one's offended. Like it's a victimless crime is the whole point. And the fact that New York Times is getting all heated about this is really ridiculous, but not surprising. I mean, they're one of the worst rag papers out there. They're totally biased and a total joke at this point. So I'm not surprised they're going with this. I'm not surprised they're trying to corner Ninja here and get him to go along with it. He seems to be dodging it pretty well though, but we'll see how it goes. But it all comes down to parenting. Ninja said, you want to know who your kid is? Listen to him when he's playing video games when he thinks you're not. Here's another thing. How does a white kid know he has white privilege if his parents never teach him or don't talk about racism? Ninja went on to say it's not his job to teach kids about culture or topics related to race because his first instinct is to assume he's being trolled in the chat. Yeah, he is being trolled. These are just jokesters, people making jokes or whatever it may be. It's not a serious thing. Like they're not really trying to insult people. They're really just trying to instigate like drama, and troll is what they would call it. It's not like direct attacks. Ninja's actually on point here, but he does kind of fall back because he says white privilege, like, oh, that's just the thing. Like everyone has it. Even like a white kid in Wyoming who's never even left his farm, but for a couple hospital visits. I mean, somehow they have privilege, and Ninja supports that idea. We don't. I think it's a dumb, silly idea. It's dated. It's just a funny way to attack white people. Really, they just want to say, hey, your ancestors did well, so now we're going to punish you and act like it's your fault now, and everything you do now is not your fault because of your skin color, which is pretty racist. Like it's just anti-white racism at the end of the day. Like unless they want to really talk about some instances of privilege, like the stuff they bring up though is really ridiculous. Like the stuff they bring up is like, oh, you're cultural appropriating dreadlocks. Like white people can't wear dreadlocks. It's like, dude, that is your example. You are terrible at this. At the same time, however, Ninja noted that the internet's illusion of anonymity does embolden people to say what they want. Ninja still thinks parents should get involved though. Of course they should be involved. I mean, this is obviously the parents' job. If they're not keeping an eye on their kids, if they're not watching them and making sure they have good attitudes and happy lives, like this is stuff that negative, mean kids do, or kids that are just troublemakers. I mean, sometimes it's just for fun. Other times it's like really sad people. Like I get attacks like this on the line all the time too. And I always just realize, and sometimes I'll try to tell them, I'm like, look, you are a sad person. You're not happy. This isn't how happy people act. And that's like your own issue. It's not because of me. It's not because of external things like Ninja or what he is or isn't saying. I mean, the guy is a video game streamer. He knows nothing about racism. He's probably never even seen or experienced much of it because it doesn't really happen too much significantly in America. I'd love to hear if he has examples in his life. I'm not seeing many. I've seen many examples of anti-white racism. I could go all day about that. But the point is, Ninja is rebounding a little bit. I don't think it's gaming. I think it's internet culture. People are behind the screen. They say what they want and can get away with it. You have complete anonymity. Your information and data are precious and should remain private. But it sucks that there are kids who could say racist things and be incredibly aggressive and threatening to women online and have zero repercussions. It would be awesome if when someone said something threatening, you could be like, let me look up this dude's gamer tag on this website. If the law could do this, not a normal person, then boom, it's Jimmy. He said that. Let's call his parents. I don't know about that suggestion. That seems a little harebrained and could be taken advantage of. But I see where Ninja's going with this. I'm glad that he's not taking a more political approach that's been really cringy in the way he's been going lately. Still not perfect though. Still talking about all this made up racism, not really citing any examples. Kind of like overhyping little racist comments in a chat. Like I was saying earlier, like it's probably the least amount of racist things you could do. Like there's a scale, like there's a difference. It's like crimes. Like you get different sentences depending on your crime. If you steal a loaf of bread, you're going to maybe get a slap on the wrist, maybe a fine. Maybe you go to jail for a week if you've done other crimes, but that's about it. Loaf of bread, I would say stealing a loaf of bread might be the equivalent to saying a racist thing in a chat room or an internet chat. It's like low-level crimes. And the problem is the leftists are treating it like it's murder. They're treating it like it's a capital offense, like someone was abused or killed, or they're treating it like money corruption too. That could be like someone who embezzled billions of dollars. Like they're treating it like a big high-class crime when really it's a low-level misdemeanor. And I would say it's still wrong. Like I'm not trying to downplay it too much. Like obviously slurs and this kind of things could hurt people, but not in these cases really. I don't think a lot of people go to these chats and read a line and be like, oh my God, I'm so offended. Like this ruined my day. Like if they did, that'd probably be the worst case scenario. Like you have a bad day because you saw a bad sentence on the internet. But I think that honestly might reflect more on you than what's going on in this situation. With that said, hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you comment your thoughts on everything below. Subscribe if you're new, hit the bell for notifications, and hit that like button too. Until next time, see you in the next video.